Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Journo Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics. Over the past couple of weeks in question period, I've noticed a bunch of really weird metrics being thrown around about how the Carney government has failed or has broken promises based on things that are absolutely literally impossible. Some of this is not unexpected, like the supposed size of the deficit, much of which was baked in when he took office. So therefore, it's hard to blame him for personally doubling it, particularly when they first came back after the election and had to pass those estimates, and blaming him for increasing spending through those estimates, even though that was entirely baked in before he took office. But also things like some of the programs that he was talking about in terms of hiring our CMP and CBSA officers. This is one of the things that conservatives have been throwing around, saying that, oh, he promised to hire 1,000 more RCMP and 1,000 more CBSA officers, and he's broken that promise. The promise was only made a few months ago, and it takes 14 weeks to train CBSA officers and 26 weeks to train RCMP officers. And before you can even do that, you need to have a plan to increase the capacity at their training facilities. You need a plan to increase recruitment, which was flagging already, in particular for their RCMP, and just like it was, or it has been with the Canadian Forces, although apparently that is finally starting to turn around, in part because they have been reforming some of their internal processes around things like the time it takes to get security clearances and so on, which would also affect our CMP officers. But these things take more than a summer to do. We can bet that when the budget comes out in early November, that there will be funds dedicated toward these training institutions so that they can increase their capacity for training, so that they can increase the number of students that they are able to admit and get through their courses, and to hire them on a permanent basis. But that's going to take time. Like, it's going to take years worth of time, which is why I find that this notion that if he hadn't done it over the course of a summer, that he's broken his promise and failed. Because, well, A, that is also impossible, but B, you have to wonder what kind of metrics they're setting up as to what constitutes success or failure, because at some point in the future, there will almost certainly be another conservative government at some point. And they will have been elected on a number of promises that will take time to implement. And if you're setting a standard right now that says that these things need to happen overnight, then what does that say for when your future government, and possibly with some of these same MPs in it, don't fulfill those promises overnight? It's the same with, for example, housing. They keep saying that the government has promised to increase housing starts, but housing starts have fallen. Housing starts are a lagging indicator, first of all, and B, again, it's going to take time for things to actually fall into place, whether that is the Canada Lands processes in order to convert government properties into land that can be developed into housing. There's a whole decommissioning process within the government that it takes to ensure that everything is properly dealt with before it can be turned over for housing development. But also, provinces and municipalities haven't done their jobs either when it comes to the conditions necessary to improve housing starts. And this is one of these things, of course, that no opposition party wants to actually admit, which is that another level of government is responsible and is not doing their jobs. And the current government is absolutely terrified of criticizing those governments because, well, then they look like they're shifting the blame or buck passing or, you name it, in part because our media has forgotten what different levels of government have for responsibilities. Nevertheless, again, you can't turn around a housing market overnight. It's going to take years. And so again, I have to question why we're setting metrics for a government that are impossible to meet on their face. Now, the government could, when they made this promise around hiring more RCMP and CPSA officers, they didn't attach a timeline to that. Okay, fair enough. We could have expected something a little more concrete. But again, we need to be cognizant of the fact that it takes time to increase capacity and it takes time to train. It would also help if they could be frank about the facts that these things will take time to build capacity and increase training. But again, they won't say that. They will merely pat themselves on the back for the promise that they made and not talk about implementation in any way, shape, or form. So it's not like the government is wholly innocent here either, because the inability to be frank in how they discuss these things also helps set up those false expectations so that they are being judged against metrics which are impossible because they won't actually talk about how it, the implementation process there. So lots of blame to go around, but this is just one of these things I've noticed in the last couple of weeks as Parliament has been back. And I think it's worth having a discussion, particularly when it comes to, how we're interacting with media and the clips we're seeing and so on, and providing something of a reality check because we're not getting that. And I think it's necessary in order to have a proper understanding about how our government works so that we can hold them to account for the right things and not for imaginary things. And that's everything for this week. Join us again next week for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. It's at journo_Dale on Twitter and journodale_no_ on Bluesky. And don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.